This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast.
Douglas, Arizona, May 1990. Federal drug agents raid a successful local business and uncover an elaborate drug smuggling operation. A remarkable underground tunnel used to transport a fortune in illegal drugs into America. When she was 16, Patsy Summers fell in love with a young soldier, got pregnant, and then married another man. Now Patsy's daughter, Jeanne Wagner, needs your help to find the father she never met. In 1982, Hilda Roche had a romantic interlude with a man she met in a singles bar. A week later, she was found murdered execution style. Police now believe that her mysterious suitor may be a serial killer. And a special appeal from the family of a baby boy stricken with a baffling disease. His mother is searching for her biological parents. Perhaps they hold the key that can help cure her son. Also an update in which an Unsolved Mysteries viewer discovers that the man she is living with is wanted for murder. As a result of our broadcast, the case of Dennis Depew is now closed. For the past several years, the United States government has embarked on a highly publicized war on drugs. Sadly, some experts and politicians believe we might be losing that war, due in part to the extraordinary lengths that drug smugglers are willing to go. We're about to take you inside one of the most brazen and elaborate drug smuggling operations that law enforcement has ever encountered. Douglas, Arizona is a sleepy border town 97 miles south of Phoenix. Just a stone's throw across a 6-foot-high chain-link fence is the Mexican border town of Agua Prieta.
The Douglas Agua Prieta area is one of the main conduits for cocaine coming into the United States, and for that reason it's known as the Cocaine Alley.
In the fall of 1988, a Mexican national named Rafael Camarena began to cross the border daily from Agua Prieta into Douglas. Camarena had purchased a concrete mixing company in Douglas and was struggling to make a go of his new business.
When he first bought the business, things weren't going that well. It wasn't successful. Buenos días, señor Camarena. We were paid on Fridays. And at times on Thursday, he'd be saying something to the effect of, I have no money, what am I going to do for payroll tomorrow? Later, Mr. Camarena would come in and say, hey, I took care of it, you know, here's your paycheck. He seemed relieved, like, whew, you know, I took a load off.
Within a few months, Camarena had secured agreements to supply concrete for many of the municipal construction projects in Douglas.
When I have spoken to Mr. Camarena, he had told me that he planned to be here for a number of years. He would check in on the business once or twice a day. He spent a lot of time in Mexico, I assume, pursuing contracts over in Agua Prieta. But yes, he was an on-hands type of business owner. He could have opened up a business anywhere in the United States of America.
In 1989, Camarena constructed a large warehouse in Douglas. At the same time, just 200 feet away in Agua Prieta, he built a 4-bedroom ranch-style home. The home, located in a wealthy area of Agua Prieta, had all the amenities that come with success.
Mr. Camarena seemed to be a good husband and a good father. This gentleman was a type of person that you would ask to join your local Lions Club. He's the type of person that you would want to be as your friend. He was the type of person that you would enjoy inviting over to your house.
In reality, Camarena's entire life was nothing but a devious facade, created to cover up a very lucrative and very illegal enterprise. U.S. Customs officials received information that Camarena was smuggling drugs from his home in Agua Prieta across the border to his warehouse in Douglas. Incredibly, Camarena's business was located 1 block away from the U.S. Customs headquarters.
Early 1990, we initiated 24-hour surveillance of the Douglas Ready Mix Company.
I think we've got something.
Agents staked out Camarena's business for over 2 months.
Yeah, it's Camarena, all right.
They became suspicious of a flatbed truck that arrived and departed from the new warehouse nearly every day.
On one occasion, we followed the tractor-trailer rig from Douglas Ready Mix to a rural area outside of Phoenix, Arizona.
A special task force comprised of U.S. Customs agents and other law enforcement officers raided a farm where Camarena's truck had been seen.
U.S. Customs with a search warrant.
Agents seized over a ton of nearly pure cocaine.
Here it is.
Street value, over $100 million. The cocaine had been transported inside a hidden compartment beneath the truck's bed. The raid confirmed that the drugs had come from Camarena's warehouse. But agents were baffled. How had Camarena managed to smuggle drugs into his warehouse, which was being watched around the clock by federal agents just a block away?
We began receiving bits and pieces of information from a variety of sources concerning the existence of a tunnel in the Douglas area.
2 days later, agents from the United States and Mexico launched simultaneous raids on Camarena's warehouse in Douglas and his new home in Agua Prieta. Mexican authorities arrested 2 men who claimed to be gardeners. Camarena and his family had fled. There was no visible evidence of a tunnel. At the Douglas warehouse, U.S. agents had first found nothing unusual. Then they came upon a large floor drain.
All right, I think we got something here. Let's get the grate off.
We found about a 5.5 diameter shaft that went 30 feet into the ground. And at the bottom of the shaft, we found the tunnel itself.
This is the actual tunnel through which between 15 and 25 tons of cocaine may have been smuggled.
The execution was really very good. The floor, the sidewalls, and the roof were all concrete. The tunnel itself extended 200 plus feet into Mexico.
When authorities uncovered the tunnel's entrance beneath Camarena's home, it became clear that this was no ordinary drug smuggling operation. It was something right out of a James Bond movie. Hydraulic pedestals lifted the pool table at a 2-ton section of concrete floor to expose the entrance. Huge amounts of drugs could be stored below until they were ready to be moved across the border. The drugs were transported on a specially designed cart. At the Douglas end, a custom-made hoist lifted the illegal cargo into the warehouse. Workers packed the cocaine bricks into the false bottom of the truck. contraband was driven out right under the noses of U.S. Customs officials.
Cumberland's choice of a building supply company and a cement company was very good in that it gave him access to trucks that could be used to transport the narcotics from the border area to distribution points in the United States. In my 18 years with the Customs Service, this is one of the most amazing investigations I've ever encountered. The sophistication of the smugglers, the construction of this tunnel itself, just demonstrates to what extremes these organizations will go to.
It just totally surprised me because here's a man that moved $100 million of cocaine illegally into the United States, and yet he was fighting for every penny that he made at Douglas Ready Mix.
Mr. Camarena didn't seem at all like a drug dealer. He didn't dress like a drug dealer. He didn't come across personality-wise as a drug dealer. He just seemed like a good family man.
Recently, we featured the case of 46-year-old Dennis Depew, wanted by Michigan authorities for the brutal murder of his ex-wife, Marilyn. Depew was last seen on the day of the murder, driving his customized van. At around 8:30 on the night of our broadcast, a woman who asked that we call her Mary arrived at her home outside Dallas, Texas. Mary's boyfriend, Hank Queen, was already home.
His van was parked in the driveway, which was out of the ordinary because he usually kept it inside the garage.
Hi, it's good you got back.
He told me that his mother was very ill and that he needed to make an emergency trip home.
And I'm going to drive up here. Could you make me some sandwiches that I can take on there? It's a really long drive.
I was sure that something else must really be going on, but I didn't know what.
Maybe 3 or 4 sandwiches and his ex-wife.
He was getting clothes out of the closet, clothes out of some drawers, gathering up some of his personal items. At the same time, giving me instructions on preparing some food for him to take on the long trip.
What do you want to drink?
I don't care anything. Sodas. Cans of soda would be good.
Everything is coming with you. Leave me alone. You're making things terrible. I hate you.
Aren't you gonna give me a hug?
He just gave me a little peck of a kiss, and I gave him a big hug and said goodbye to him. I realized that something was troubling him, and I knew I would never see him again.
Later that night, Mary was shocked to learn that her boyfriend, Hank Queen, was really Dennis Depew, and that he had just been featured on Unsolved Mysteries. On Easter Sunday of last year, Dennis Depew arrived at his ex-wife Marilyn's home to pick up their children for a scheduled visit. Dennis erupted in a violent rage. He accused Marilyn of destroying his life and turning their children against him.
You're making things terrible. I hate you.
The next day, Marilyn Depew's body was discovered in a roadside ditch 9 miles from her home. She had been shot once in the back of the head.
It was so brutal and premeditated that it makes you so angry. If she'd been killed in an automobile accident, you could get over that, but not this.
For nearly a year, Dennis Depew's whereabouts remained a mystery until the night of our broadcast.
Looking back on it now, I'm sure he was watching, and I think that he was deliberately keeping my attention distracted in the kitchen so that I wouldn't see the segment and so that he could leave.
A friend of Mary's called our telecenter and provided authorities with a Texas license plate number of Dennis Depew's van. 4 hours later, Depew's life came to a violent end just across the Louisiana-Mississippi state border. When Louisiana state troopers spotted Depew's van, they attempted to pull him over. He led police on a 15-mile high-speed chase and broke through 2 police barricades.
I told the deputies if the van refused to stop, to shoot a tire off of it, the front tire. And they missed the front tire, but they got both back ones. He traveled about half a mile and just wouldn't go any further, and he stopped.
After firing 2 shots through his windshield at deputies and another through an open window, Depew turned his gun on himself and took his own life.
It was a funny feeling to realize that the night before that you had been watching this man, that he was wanted for murder someplace, and then you walk up to the van and you recognize him as being the person that was on Unsolved Mysteries. It's a funny feeling. But I think he intended to die, whether he had to do it by his own hands or where he could get us to kill him. Otherwise, he would have stopped and we'd have gotten him out of the van alive, and there'd never been any shots fired.
While living as a fugitive, Dennis Depew sent a chilling letter to several friends trying to justify his ex-wife's death. He wrote, "An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a lie for a lie, a life for a life." At the time, Dennis Depew had no idea just how prophetic those words would be. Jeanne Wagner was born in 1959 into a typical blue-collar household. Her father was a construction worker, her mother a secretary in a doctor's office. Jeanne was the first of 3 children and enjoyed a healthy, normal childhood, at least by outward appearances.
From a very early age, I felt very different and separated from my family. I felt like I didn't look like anybody. And for a while there, I thought, well, you know, maybe I was adopted. And no one intentionally made me feel that way, I don't think, but it was just a knowledge I had that was, I guess, in my subconscious. Consciously, you know, it was, you know, a family, a normal family, but there was something different.
Many families seem to have their share of untold tales. Dark, disturbing secrets that are hidden away, buried, and hopefully forgotten. But occasionally these unpleasant ghosts will rise once again with far-reaching consequences. In El Paso, Texas, Jeanne Wagner recently discovered her family's tragic secret, a secret which has led Jeanne on an emotional journey through her mother's painful past. Jeanne's mother, Patsy Summers, was just 17 years old when she married. She was shy, private, and had been raised in a strict home.
My mother was a very devoutly religious Catholic, had perfect etiquette, and was very concerned about her image to other people. But there was something within my mother that prevented her from being a whole person. There were times my mother was very happy, very carefree, and so much fun to be with. But then there were times where she was very, very sad.
Even as a child, Jeanne suspected that her mother was tormented by some private demon. In 1973, when Jeanne was 13, Patsy Summers attempted to commit suicide by slitting her wrists. 8 years later, Patsy entered a highway against traffic and smashed head-on into an approaching car. She died 10 days later.
Hello?
Shortly after her mother's death, Jeanne called her younger sister and was dealt another startling blow. Her sister had found a diary which revealed the source of their mother's inner pain.
I think you better come over.
The man Jeannie knew as her father was not her father at all.
There's a diary of Mother's I want you to read.
When I read the diary, it was as if all of a sudden all the things that had transpired in my life and in my mother's life and in my life, the family life that I had known, everything all of a sudden made sense.
In the diary, Patsy had described the incredible predicament she had gotten into when she was 17. In 1958, Patsy Summers was living at home with her mother and younger brother.
No, you've done enough today. I'm gonna have your sister.
She was an obedient daughter who excelled in school and attended church regularly.
I'm gonna run along to the park then, okay?
Did you do your homework?
Yeah, Mom, I did.
Our mother had very high standards.
Don't be late for dinner.
She came from a Catholic background, and we had a very Catholic upbringing. We went to parochial schools, and our home was one where we went to church every Sunday. And that was very, very important to our mother. She set a good example, and she did expect, she expected us to follow the things that were right.
My mother had been going with a boy off and on for about a year. Her mother and her brothers and sister liked him a lot. They thought he was very responsible and very polite, and he drove a nice car. Back then, that was real important. And they had fought off and on through their relationship.
The diary detailed how Patsy had gone to a local park one day after an argument with her boyfriend. There she met a young enlisted man stationed at nearby Fort Bliss. His name was Duncan.
Hello.
Hi.
Do you mind if I sit down? Thanks. I'm Duncan.
I'm Patricia.
Patsy was immediately smitten by this handsome soldier who seemed so gentle and understanding.
It's pretty here, isn't it?
Yeah. Come here to think.
Soon they were seeing each other on a regular basis.
Could I meet you here tomorrow?
My mother talked to him a lot and confided in him.
Is he doing okay?
And she thought of Duncan as a very kind person, and even stated that of all the people that she had known, that he was the kindest person she had ever met.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
In August of 1958, Patsy Summers turned 17. Duncan threw her a surprise birthday party, inviting a small, select group of friends. By now, Patsy was living a lie, keeping her relationship with Duncan hidden from her boyfriend and her family.
Patricia.
Mom.
Oh, thank
Hi.
goodness. I was worried sick. What happened?
I'm sorry. The bus must have got there a little bit early. I was just a little bit late. I won't let it happen again, Mom.
All right. You all right?
Patsy and Duncan continued their secret liaisons throughout the summer and into the fall.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.
In October, Patsy panicked when she discovered that she was pregnant.
Little 5-year-old starts digging through
Her boyfriend believed that he was the father.
like a shirt around her head. Are you listening to me, Mama?
I think she was consumed with fear. Fear that her family would think badly of her. It was her belief that it was just unforgivable, and she never wanted to disappoint her mother. Her mother was very important to her, and she says, there was no way I could ever tell my mother in a million years my problem.
Patsy was forced to make an excruciating decision. Duncan had accepted full responsibility for the pregnancy and wanted to marry her. But Patsy opted for pleasing her family.
Patsy. There's something I want to talk to you about.
Sure, anything.
I've come to a decision.
Patsy, what is it?
Don't be upset, but we can't see each other anymore.
She didn't feel that she
It
could
wouldn't work.
change some things that were already set in motion, which were that she was to be married. And she was to be married to someone that was known and accepted by her family.
Sorry.
Given the times and also given the kind of religious training that we had, I can see how she made the choice, yes.
The pain of Patsy's dilemma was exposed in a diary entry.
I had to do it. I had to please my mother. That was the most important thing in the world. There was no other way.
To you, Patricia Ann Summers, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, to love and to honor.
On November 11th, 1958, Patsy and her boyfriend were married.
For as long as you both shall live.
Only the two of them knew that Patsy was pregnant.
By the power vested in me.
Only Patsy knew who the real father was.
You may kiss the bride.
No one suspected a pregnancy. No one. It was just a wedding, and it was lovely. The night that my sister went into labor, she said to me, "Tell Mother I'm sorry." And what I realized was that she had been pregnant before she was married, but I certainly didn't realize that it went any further than that.
Jeannie was born 7 months after the wedding. In her diary, Patsy had described how she prayed for a child with blue eyes like those of her new husband. Patsy received her wish.
My firm belief is that secrets only cause people harm and cause a lot of suffering. And that's why, for me, the truth has to come out, and I have to know who Duncan is.
The night that Jeannie's story aired, a woman named Suzanne Gilmore was watching our broadcast at her home in Lake Wylie, South Carolina. At the time, Susan's husband, Duncan, was fast asleep.
Jeannie's mother had written in her diary that he was the sweetest, kindest person that she had ever met. I just said, that's my Duncan. I knew that it was my Duncan.
And the next thing I know, my wife woke me up and she said, "Were you ever stationed in El Paso, Texas at Fort Bliss when you were in the Army?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Were you there in 1958? And I said, "Yeah, I was there in 1958. And she said, "Did you ever know Patsy Summers?" And I said, "Yeah, I knew Patsy Summers."
Did you sleep with her? And he said, what? He just kind of came awake. And I said, "It's very important. Did you sleep with her?" And he said,
"Well, yeah." She said, "Congratulations, you have a daughter and she's looking for you."
and he just came awake like a shot. It was like, "She's looking for me?" And I said, "Yes."
As soon as I heard some of the details, I knew immediately she was my daughter. And I don't want to say it was matter of fact, but I just knew that she was my daughter and that we had to be together and I had to see her and I had to respond.
9 days and dozens of phone calls later, Duncan Gilmore and his wife Suzanne arrived in Houston, Texas. On May 3rd, 1991, father and daughter met for the first time in their lives.
When I hugged my dad, it was a combination of being really, really happy, but also there was a little sadness there that so many years have gone by and that we've missed out on each other's lives.
I love you. I love you too. I will always remember Jeannie coming to the door and for the first time seeing my daughter and holding her.
The The day was made even more special when Duncan met his only grandchildren, Joshua and Justin, for the first time.
When I saw my boys playing catch with their grandpa, it just felt right. They needed a grandpa, and I can't think of a better grandpa for them to have.
Push me.
Never could I have hoped in a million years or prayed 1,000 prayers for this to turn out as well as it has. And he's turned out to be everything that I thought he was going to be.
Yeah, you did.
And tomorrow and the day after, I'll now have a dad who loves me and wants to be a part of my life.
When we return, a chance meeting at a singles bar leads to murder.
Excuse me, is anyone sitting here?
No, go right ahead.
Thank you.
On March 25, 1982, 43-year-old divorcee Hilda Roche met a man at a fashionable singles bar in Alexandria, Virginia.
Crowded in here tonight.
It is Friday night. It's always a crowded night.
I haven't seen you in here. You work around here?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
I work for the military intelligence.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Do you work nearby?
I do some contract work for the government.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
Hilda later told friends that she had dinner with the man and planned on seeing him again. But oddly, she never told anyone his name.
All right, why not?
Okay, we can go back there. She can see.
Hilda had said that the guy was single, he was attractive, he had a lot of money, and she was impressed that he was driving this beautiful car. I started to tell her, don't believe everything this guy's telling you. The car is probably rented. Anybody can make up a big story. You don't know anything about him. Watch out.
1 week later, the nude body of a woman was found in a wooded area near an elementary school. She had been murdered execution style. There were signs of sexual assault. Police had no idea who the victim was.
Hello? Is there anybody here? County Police? Is there anyone here?
4 days later, investigators searched Hilda Roche's townhouse after co-workers had reported her missing.
Well, Lenny, it doesn't look like there's anybody here. I got a wallet here.
In the living room, officers found Hilda's wallet.
Hey, Lenny?
Yeah.
Hold on just a second. We just identified our victim. Got her picture on her driver's license right here.
Authorities now knew that Hilda Roche was the woman who had been found murdered.
Get the crime scene text down here.
Shay, I'd like you to go ahead and do a 360 of the room, get the bed.
Evidence in Hilda's bedroom confirmed that she had been sexually molested.
Tape on the floor here, adhesive tape there, clothes over here.
The bed and the whole bedroom was in disarray, and we found her blouse and a pair of slacks and some pantyhose and some adhesive tape. And that's indicative of a struggle going on there. And other evidence that we located in the room also indicated that some type of sexual activity took place.
Because there were no signs of forced entry at the apartment, detectives concluded that Hilda Roche was murdered by someone she knew. Most homicide detectives agree that the first 48 hours of a murder investigation are the most crucial. Beyond that point, leads grow cold and suspects disappear. In this case, it took 4 days just to identify Hilda Roche and more than 3 months to zero in on a suspect. A man authorities now believe may be a serial killer.
I mean, up to you.
No, that would be great.
I'd love to.
When detectives interviewed Hilda Roche's friends, they learned about the mysterious man she had met at the singles bar just 1 week before her death.
Hilda had told her friends that the fellow was from Florida, drove a nice car. He was a consultant for the government, and that he lived in these apartments over in Alexandria. As a matter of fact, she told her that she even went over to the apartment that evening.
The 1,400-unit apartment complex was the only clue to the man's identity. Investigators searched through files and files of lease agreements dating back 3 years. They were looking for any resident, past or present, who matched the description of the man Hilda had met.
We went through approximately 25 to 30,000 files. And out of that 25, 30,000, we come up with 32 possible names that fit the profile of the person that Hilda had described to her friend.
Detective Cahill was confident that his team was closing in. All they needed was one piece of evidence that could link any of the 32 suspects with Hilda Roche. 3 months into the investigation, they got the break they needed.
My wallet's missing.
Excuse me?
My wallet's gone. It's...
Authorities learned that Hilda had lost her wallet on the very night she had met the man.
There's no place for it to go. It's, I can't believe I left
Miss?
Excuse me.
Is there a problem? My wallet.
She's lost her wallet, she thinks. What color was it?
For some unknown reason, Hilda's mysterious suitor insisted that he be contacted if the wallet was found.
Okay, I'll check with the bartender. Are we set at the end?
Okay, no problem. I'll be back.
God, this is embarrassing.
A few days later, the restaurant found Hilda Roche's wallet.
Yes, sir. May I help you?
Yeah, I called before you found the lady's wallet, tan, belonging to Hilda Roche. I'm here to pick it up.
Okay, let me check in lost and found.
She had called and said that he was going to bring the wallet back. And I'm saying, something wrong here. Why did he go to the management to find out about the wallet? Why did management call him when they found the wallet? My first impression was, the guy's putting you on.
Sir, I did find Hilda Roche's wallet.
Good.
Could I see your driver's license?
The restaurant manager remembered little about the man. Then she agreed to undergo hypnosis. It paid off. She recalled a phone number.
Okay.
The hypnotist told us that this would not be the exact phone number. He said, now, most of the numbers are going to be the same. They're going to be right. He says, but they might be transposed or something. You're going to have to work with it.
When detectives compared the phone number with those of the 32 apartment residents, they came up with a nearly exact match. The number belonged to 38-year-old Gregory Barker. Barker had moved out of the apartment complex a short time after Hilda's murder.
So we immediately began to do a background investigation on Mr. Barker. We were not able to find any particular company or government agency that he had applied to or even worked for. As a matter of fact, we don't believe that he worked for any agency up here. We believe that what he told the people at the apartment and what he was telling people he met was all a scam made up in his own mind.
Gregory Barker is a decorated Vietnam veteran. He served 2 tours, the second as an Army intelligence officer. He is a voracious reader of spy novels. Police theorize that Barker's mental state may have deteriorated to a point where he now believes that he himself is a master spy. Based on Barker's psychological profile and crime scene evidence, Detective Cahill has developed a chilling scenario of what happened the night Hilda Roche was murdered.
Greg.
Hi.
I thought you were going to come tomorrow.
What I have.
My wallet, thank you.
I believe that Gregory Barker came over to the house in the intention of returning the wallet to Hilda and possibly something else in mind.
You look fine. May I come in?
Yes, come in. Come in. I'm sorry.
During his visit with Hilda, he had an altercation, a violent altercation with her down in the living room. And sometime later, up in the bedroom, her clothes were taken off and a sexual activity occurred there. at that time took her against her will out of the house down to the school, which is located about 9.5 miles away from the house.
Get out.
She was taken out of the vehicle and she was naked and led up a path about 150 feet to a wooded area between a housing development and the school. At which time he just brutally murdered her with a gunshot to the head. From doing a background investigation on Mr. Barker, we don't believe that this is the first murder that he committed. We don't believe that this was the last murder he committed. We believe that he could be responsible for numerous murders. We feel that possibly he could even be a serial murderer. We're very sure of the fact that he's smart and he's very dangerous.
Next, the heartbreaking story of a 10-month-old boy who's fighting for his life. Perhaps you can help. In the past, we have brought you many stories of lost love, often about adopted children looking for their biological parents. This is a very different kind of lost love story. A young woman in Idaho is searching for her birth parents, not for herself alone, but also for her son. Jerry Graves clings to the fragile hope that her background holds the key to a mysterious illness that threatens her baby's life.
We can be big, Mommy.
Jerry and John Graves married in 1989. Together, they are raising Jerry's 2 daughters from a previous marriage. In 1990, Jerry and John had a son, JJ.
When we brought JJ home from the hospital, I noticed he was convulsing, which scared me really bad because I thought he was going to die. I really thought, that was my first thought, that he was dying.
Jerry and John took JJ to specialist after specialist. No one could pinpoint the cause of JJ's problems, but he continued to have as many as 50 seizures a day.
Throughout JJ's first 6 months of life, he would get to where he would have so many seizures in a day, he wouldn't eat. We're talking, he would eat maybe 2 ounces a day. His body couldn't keep up on just that. He would dehydrate very easily. We were down to, I was feeding JJ with a medicine dropper, and it wouldn't work. And when he would get dehydrated or anything like that, we were back in the hospital.
I would say that the initial guarded optimism we had when he did have fairly normal tone and initial muscle activity in the first few months of life has become much more pessimistic.
Each time the doctors give me a little bit of bad news, they still tell me there's hope. He has voluntary movement. When he's laying down and you'll tickle his foot, he will move his foot so that you no longer can tickle it. And that is something that every parent with a normal, healthy baby takes for granted. They don't know how thrilled I was when my son kicked his covers off of himself. I was ready to throw a party.
When JJ was 8 months old, his muscular development stalled at the level of a newborn's. Even after a myriad of tests, doctors could not determine what was causing JJ's seizures or his slow development. Jerry and John began to consider the remote possibility that JJ's illness might be genetic. Jerry had been adopted as an infant, but had never before thought about tracking down her birth parents.
I am searching to find my biological parents. There is a slim chance that by knowing my medical history, maybe they could possibly put something together as to what is happening with JJ.
Jerry has few clues about her past. She was born Kelly Marie McMillan on November 7, 1963 in Ventura County, California. Her parents were not married. Her mother hoped to become a nurse. Her father was of Irish descent. Jerry's adoption records are legally sealed, so she knows little else about her biological parents and remains apprehensive about the prospect of meeting them.
I know things might be devastating to me. I know some things might affect me wrong, but I'm going to forego that. If there's a chance for JJ, I can go through anything. I've had a doctor come in and tell me that my son wasn't going to live, but in the same breath, that doctor told me that my son has a chance. And even though he may have problems, and he may not be normal, he's my baby and he's my son. There is an answer out there. And we will find it.
Join me next time for another edition of Unsolved Mysteries.